thinking about you guys the whole time. I swear it's just been a really stressful time. I might do a little life update because I've been up to quite a few bits, including travelling. So that'll be exciting to talk about. And also just to kind of explain why I've been away, because I promised I would be a bit more consistent. But anyways, I'm going to be reading the book Future Tense by Tracy Dennis Tillery, and she is a psychologist, and she basically wrote this book about how anxiety can be advantageous and can actually help us to function. I got this book a few years ago. My mum gifted it to me because I was going through a tough time in my life. I was struggling with existential anxiety and dread, and it was really taking over my whole life for that year, and it really lowered my mood and mental health. And so she gave me this book that she had discovered, I think, through the program This Morning. I think the psychologist came on and was advertising a book, and my mum thought it looks good. And I can confirm from reading segments of this book that it is pretty good. So there's different chapters on different topics. I'm gonna read you the different chapter titles and we're gonna pick one together. First chapter is What Anxiety Is and Isn't. It says in brackets. The second chapter is Why Anxiety Exists. The third chapter is Future Tense, Choose Your Own Adventure. And the fourth chapter is The Anxiety as Disease Story. The fifth chapter is Comfortably Numb. The sixth chapter is Blame the Machines, question mark. And the seventh chapter is Uncertainty. The eighth chapter is Creativity. The ninth chapter is Kids Are Not Fragile. And the last chapter is Being Anxious in the Right Way. So I'm gonna quickly review these and I'm gonna choose a chapter based on how I'm feeling right now with my anxiety. Being Anxious in the Right Way, which was the last chapter of the book. Let's read this chapter together, or some of this chapter. Being Anxious in the Right Way. There's a quote: "To learn to be anxious in the right way is to learn the ultimate." With this quote from the patron saint of anxiety, we pick up where we began. Learning to be anxious in the right way, even when it feels bad. That is the ultimate destination and purpose of this book. If you've read this far, you might have a sense of what this call to action means to you, because you have, at some point in your life, run up against an inescapable fact. Anxiety is hard. So hard that sometimes it doesn't merely make you feel bad, it keeps you from living the life you want. Up until this point, I've offered few prescriptions about what you should do to be anxious in the right way. There are no to-do lists, no homework assignments, no therapeutic strategies you need to learn by heart. Nonetheless, I have made a promise to you that if you challenge your own beliefs about anxiety, what it is, what it isn't, what it's good for, and how it impacts your life, your new mindset will change your whole experience of anxiety, and as a result, you'll create a better life and a better future. Don't get me wrong, being a paradigm shifter won't be paint by numbers, but I do believe that change you to see the world in a fresh light, make different choices, and try new things. That will take work. If you've read this far, you've considered putting in that work. In this last chapter, I provide 3 fundamental principles to help you get started on the work of befriending your anxiety, encapsulating everything I've written thus far. They are action steps to help you stay on course when anxiety is confusing, a burden, and is getting in the way. Notice that these are principles, not tips or strategies. That's not because strategies are bad. There are many excellent anxiety tips and toolkits out there. The problem with strategies is that they're meant to overcome your anxiety. Instead, these 3 principles state that overcoming your anxiety isn't the goal. The goal is to understand what your anxiety is telling you and to try and use that information to change your life for the better. The 3 principles are: anxiety is information about the future, listen to it. If anxiety isn't useful, let it go for the moment. If anxiety is useful, do something purposeful with it. Number 1. Anxiety is information about the future. Listen to it. Anxiety is nothing if not a dense, powerful packet of information. It combines bodily sensations, heart racing, throat tightening, face grimacing, with a stream, or sometimes a torrent of thoughts and beliefs, worries, mental distress, rehearsals, fix-it solutions that train your attention on something important. It tells you that bad things could come, but haven't happened yet, and that you still have the time and ability to make it right and get what you want. That's why anxiety manifests hope. But to achieve this, anxiety must be uncomfortable. It needs you to sit up and pay attention to it. It's an energizing signal, boosting your focus and drive as you close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. No other emotion so effectively keeps you trained on the future, enables you to focus on threats as well as rewards, and keeps you working towards your goals. This is why anxiety is a useful emotion. It points your whole being towards purpose. But here's the irony. Although the unpleasantness of anxiety makes you pay attention to what is important to you, its fundamental unpleasantness makes it hard to listen. Terrible feelings make us want to turn away unless we create a habit of sitting with them before taking action to rid ourselves of them. That's why when it comes to listening to anxiety, curiosity is our best friend. I don't mean you should want anxiety. I didn't title this book Love Your Anxiety, although that did cross my mind, because not all anxiety is useful, but the stance you take towards the pain of anxiety will make all the difference in terms of how uncomfortable it is, how well you can bear it, and what you can do with it. So don't love your anxiety, don't even like it, just be curious about it. I like that, because it's kind of like saying be neutral about it, like be curious. Curious doesn't really take a lot of energy out of you, and it doesn't require a lot to it, but it's saying curiosity is something positive, it's something light-hearted. I like that. I really like that, because one thing I've learned with my anxiety is to not let it, literally see it as like a thought in a bubble, and don't let it contaminate your mind. Keep it in that bubble. It can pass through your mind, you can think about it briefly, but don't let that translate into a bodily sensation like heart palpitations or sickness, nausea. Just acknowledge the thought and let it pass away, and I love that. Be curious about it, but don't love it, don't hate it, don't even like it. I really like that. This might not at first blush make much sense. How can you be curious about something that is hurting you? But anxiety isn't dangerous. By approaching curiosity underscored this fundamental fact. You realize that anxiety is safe to investigate. That changes everything. Recall the TRIA social stress test in chapter 1, in which socially anxious people were judged by unfriendly strangers during difficult tasks, such public speaking and tricky math tests. The participants were told ahead of time that their natural reactions to the performance, anxiety, pounding heart racing, breath, a sick feeling in the pit of their stomach, were actually signs that their bodies were energized and preparing to face the tough tasks ahead. This can be hard for some people to accept because something called anxiety sensitivity, the belief that anxiety itself is psychologically and medically harmful. But in this study, that view was corrected. The subjects were told that anxiety was healthy and would help them perform at their best, and so they were encouraged to be more curious and appreciative of the uncomfortable emotions that we're about to experience. That's very interesting. I like that. I really like that. It's pretty interesting. I'd like to look into that test. The TRIA social stress test. Anxiety isn't dangerous. It's safe to investigate. And it worked. Compared to the participants in the study who weren't told that anxiety is beneficial, they had healthier physiological responses. Their blood vessels were more relaxed and their heart rate was slower, since high blood pressure and heart rate and racing heart can cause wear and tear on the body over time. This shows that the subjects stopped assuming that anxiety was harmful. It literally did less harm. Instead, their bodies responded as healthy bodies do when striving to succeed in a difficult task. There's a second key aspect of listening to anxiety: perceiving when it grows, shrinks, or even just goes away. In other words, your anxiety level changes. It tends to peak at the beginning of a challenging time, and when you hit a bump in the road, and it plummets when you overcome that setback and achieve your goal. The cessation of anxiety is just as important as a piece of information as its onset. It means you can take your foot off the pedal. In this way, anxiety is a lot like physical pain, incredibly useful when it compels you to take actions that protect your body, such as pulling your hand back from a hot pan, but just as useful when it stops, letting you know the danger is past. Being curious about anxiety means listening to what it tells you all along the way, when it starts, when it changes, and when it goes silent. That's interesting. If you want to be more open and curious about anxiety, you must rethink what you mean by the word. To understand how, let's digress for a moment to dig into the modern language of anxiety. The word has become ubiquitous. Online text analysis show that people today are 10 times as likely to write about or utter the word anxiety than they were 40 years ago. In that sense, anxiety has become the new stress. When I was growing up in the 1980s, stress was the word on everyone's lips. Back then, if anyone asked, "How are you?" and my answer wasn't "Fine, thank you," there was a high probability that I would say, "Well, okay, but I'm pretty stressed." Stressed was shorthand for every slightly unpleasant feeling: tired, overwhelmed, angry, concerned, scared, and sad, even in the context of something joyful. How's your wedding planning going? Oh, it's great, but I'm stressed. How is your recovery from the operation going? It's pretty stressful, but I'll get through it. Anxiety has replaced stress as our emotional language placeholder. For every uncomfortable feeling, every sense of uncertainty, we are anxious about giving a presentation, going on a blind date, starting a new job. The word has absorbed a mobilike everything from dread to pleasant anticipation. Yet the mere use of the word casts our experience in a negative light, infusing them with danger and a touch of the not quite right. In part, this is because English suffers from a lack of nuanced words for anxiety. That isn't the case for all symptoms, many of which are distinct words for healthy anxiety versus that which is debilitating. Kyle, goo, or wind overload refers to an experience akin to a panic attack, a dangerous fainting spell, along with heart palpitations, blurry vision, and shortness of breath. In some Spanish-speaking cultures, ataque de nervios, or attack of nerves, includes uncontrollable screaming and shouting or crying, trembling sensation, heat rising from the chest and head, dissociative or out-of-body experiences, and verbal or physical aggression. But the words for distressing anxiety